Hey there, and welcome. Tonight, we're wandering into one of the oldest, quietest puzzles of the human mind. The kind of question that doesn't shout, but hums quietly behind every choice you make, every path you take, every moment you pause and ask, was that really me deciding? This isn't a debate. This isn't an argument. It's something softer. A slow, thoughtful exploration. The kind of story that unfolds like a walk through a quiet forest, where each step feels familiar, even if you've never been there before. Before we begin, take a deep breath. Let it go slowly. Maybe dim the lights, adjust your blanket, and let the day begin to settle behind you. If you'd like, you can tap the like button or subscribe to join this little circle of late night wonder. And if you feel like sharing, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now. I love knowing how far these questions can travel. Now, let the stillness gather. Let your breath anchor you softly, and let's begin. The moment before the choice. Think back to the last small decision you made today. Maybe you reached for a glass of water. Maybe you checked your phone. Maybe you changed your mind. Something simple. Something forgettable. Did you choose it? Did you decide to do it? Or did it just happen? Was there a moment, a single silent moment, when your awareness reached out and said, yes, this? Or did the hand move on its own? Did the thought arise by itself? Did the action simply follow a pattern you didn't see? The question of free will lives in these small spaces, not always in dramatic crossroads or life-changing decisions, but in the subtle turns of thought, the flicker before a movement, the quiet pause before the word is spoken. And for centuries, philosophers and scientists and poets alike have asked, are we truly choosing, or is choice an illusion so perfect it feels real? The idea that we are free, that we move through life as conscious authors of our actions, is woven into nearly everything we do. We say, I decided, I changed my mind, I chose this path, and it feels true, deeply true. But the closer we look, the stranger it becomes. Neuroscientists have discovered something curious. When people are asked to perform a simple action, press a button, lift a finger, their brains show signs of activity before they become aware of deciding. Just milliseconds, but measurable. The readiness potential, as if the body has already begun, and the mind is simply catching up, watching the show, then claiming to have written the script. That doesn't mean we're robots. It doesn't mean we're puppets. But it does suggest that some part of us, perhaps the deeper, quieter part, is moving first. And the self we think of as I may just be the narrator, stepping in after the fact to give the story a name. And yet, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like choosing. It feels like freedom. It feels like standing at a fork in the road and knowing you could go left or right, and that something deep inside you gets to decide. Not randomly, not automatically. You. But what if both are true? What if the brain prepares and awareness notices? What if choice is not the creation of action, but the recognition of alignment? a moment where thought, feeling, memory, and biology meet, and consciousness nods gently in agreement. Not, I made this, but, yes, this is mine. Free will, then, may not be absolute. It may not mean total control over the forces that shape us. Our genetics, our environment, our past, our chemistry. But within all that, within the swirling complexity of being human, there may be a window, a gap, a breath, a moment of awareness that says, here is where I meet the motion. Here is where I say yes. And that might be enough. You don't need to answer this question tonight. You don't need to decide if you are the author of every step or the witness of a story unfolding. You can simply rest with the wonder that something in you is watching, that something in you feels real, even if you can't explain why, that something in you notices the moment before the choice and smiles. So sleep now. Let go of needing to know. Let the breath be the only decision you follow. In, out, and feel the gentle truth. You are here, and that is its own kind of freedom. Are we gears in a machine or weather in the sky? There's a metaphor that's lasted centuries, that the universe is a machine, a clockwork, a perfect, precise engine of causes and effects. One thing happens, and then another, and another, like dominoes, like gears turning gears. And if you believe that metaphor, then the question of free will becomes very tight, very narrow. Because in a perfect machine, there's no room for freedom. Every cog turns because another made it turn. Every movement is predetermined by what came before, including you, including your thoughts, including that small, quiet voice that says, I chose this. But that isn't the only metaphor. And maybe it's not the best one, because the human mind, the human being, might not be a clock. It might be a sky. And in that sky, thoughts form like weather. Emotions drift in and out like clouds. Desires rise like wind. And beneath it all, something still, something vast, watches it all unfold. The machine metaphor is tidy, but the sky is wide. And the truth, if there is a single truth, may live somewhere in between. Determinism says everything that happens has a cause. Your choice to listen to this story, your decision to stay in bed, the turn of your attention, the blink of your eyes, all of it, according to determinism, is the result of something else. Neurons firing, chemicals shifting, past experiences wiring patterns into your brain. Nothing random, nothing truly free. But even those who believe in this mechanical elegance often admit our experience doesn't feel mechanical. It doesn't feel like one domino hitting the next. It feels like breath, like intention, like we are in the world, but not of it. Like something in us stands just outside the gears, watching, choosing, pausing. The compatibilists, those who try to hold both truths, suggest that maybe free will doesn't mean being free of causes. Maybe it means being free within them. Like sailing. You can't control the wind, but you can choose your direction. You can't control the sea, but you can steer. The sailor is not free in the sense of absolute autonomy, but they are free in the sense of agency, response, presence. That kind of freedom is softer. more human. It doesn't need to break the laws of physics to exist. It only needs one thing: awareness. Awareness changes everything. A machine is not aware. A clock does not know it is ticking. But you are not simply reacting. You are noticing. That noticing gives space. And in that space, even the smallest freedom becomes possible. Because think about this: if everything were fully predetermined, your next thought would already be decided. You would not be able to pause it, redirect it, question it, but you can. Right now, try to think of nothing. Just for a moment, let the mind be still, and then watch what happens. The thoughts will return, but you'll see them come. You'll notice them. And in that noticing, you'll feel something strange, something beautiful. You are not the thoughts. You are the sky they pass through. Maybe you didn't choose the weather, but you can open your umbrella. Maybe you didn't ask for the wind, but you can lift your sail. The brain is shaped by experience. That's true. Your childhood, your environment, your habits. But every time you pause, every time you reflect, you are stepping just slightly outside the system. You're not destroying it. You're not escaping it. You're witnessing it. And that witnessing changes everything. Even if all you can do is notice, that is enough. Because noticing gives birth to attention, and attention gives birth to change. And yet, the paradox remains. The feeling of choosing might itself be caused by prior conditions. The awareness of choosing, the sensation of freedom, might just be one more link in the chain. So which is it? Are we clouds, shifting with the wind? Or are we something deeper, something that sees the clouds come and go? Here's a quieter possibility. Maybe we are both. Maybe we are the sky and the storm, the ripple and the river, the cause and the witness. Maybe free will is not an object to grasp, but a rhythm to feel. Not something to prove, but something to live. And maybe that's enough. Tonight, you don't have to solve this. You don't have to decide whether your next breath is chosen or given. Just feel it. Feel the body soften. Feel the mind rest. Feel the next thought come and go. And know this: whatever freedom is, whatever it means to choose, something in you has already said yes to this moment. You are not a machine. You are not a random drift of dust. You are awareness. And in awareness, there is room. Room to feel. Room to listen. Room, maybe, to choose. Sleep now. Not because the choice is made for you, not because it's outside your control, but because, in this moment, you can rest, and in rest, you can return to the stillness, to the sky, to the part of you that never stopped watching. If we can't choose everything, can we still choose enough? It's easy to imagine freedom as something total, complete control, a blank canvas where every brushstroke is yours alone. But when we really look at our lives, at the long, winding line of hours, years, decisions, reactions, we start to see how much is already in motion, how much is already set before we even enter the room. The body you were born into, the country, the language, the early years, before you had words, the patterns passed down from people who didn't know they were passing anything, the wounds that left fingerprints, the voices you grew up hearing and eventually called your own. And yet, despite all that, despite the weight of everything that came before, there's still something soft, still something open, still something that pauses sometimes and asks, now what? Because even if you didn't choose the shape of the room, maybe you can still choose where to sit. Maybe free will doesn't mean starting from nothing. Maybe it means choosing how to meet what's already here. And that's not a small thing. Imagine a garden. You didn't choose the soil. You didn't choose the season. You didn't choose the weather today. But you can water. You can prune. You can plant. You can tend. That tending, that presence, is a kind of freedom. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. Some neuroscientists argue that decisions happen before we're conscious of them, that the brain lights up, the body begins to move, and only then does awareness notice and label it a choice. But here's the quiet twist. Even if that's true, even if the impulse starts without you, it's what you do after that makes the difference. The first spark might not be yours, but how you carry it is. You might not choose your first thought, but you can choose whether to feed it, to follow it, to speak it, to let it go. That gap between impulse and action is where something precious lives. And that something might be free will. In that small space, in that breath, in that noticing, you step into a deeper part of yourself, the part that watches, the part that feels, the part that pauses. And in that pause, everything opens. Because not all freedom is about breaking away. Sometimes it's about turning toward kindness, toward patience, toward the version of yourself that you are not yet, but that you quietly long to become. And that kind of choice matters. Even if you can't choose what thought comes next, you can choose what story you tell about it. Even if you can't choose what happened to you, you can choose how gently you speak to the part of you still holding it. Even if you can't escape the causes, the patterns, the biology, you can meet them. With softness, with awareness, with the strange, steady power of a heart that says, "This moment is mine." We may not be as free as we imagine, but we're not powerless either. We're not gods, but we are not puppets. We are something quieter, something slower. We are the ones who feel the weight of the question and carry it, even without an answer. And maybe that's the point. Free will might not be about being completely free. It might be about being just free enough to notice, to choose what matters, to keep listening, even when the path is uncertain. Tonight, as your thoughts settle and your body softens into the bed, let this be your choice, to rest, not because the world is finished, not because the question is solved, but because the moment is here, and you are in it, fully, quietly, completely. Let your breath move like a wave, slow, soft, steady. Let the next thought come, and let it go. Let your awareness widen like a sky that has nothing to prove. You are not deciding everything. but you are meeting everything, and that is enough. Sleep now. You've already made the only choice that matters: to be here, to be present, to let go, and to let this moment be what it is. Are we the program or the one who sees through it? Close your eyes if they aren't already. Feel the mind still working, even in the quiet. Thoughts appearing, like messages sent from somewhere deep inside. A voice suggesting a worry, a memory replaying without request, an image from nowhere. And underneath it all, something watching. Something that didn't ask for the thought, didn't invent it, but sees it all the same. And it begins again. The question: who is doing the thinking, and who is doing the noticing? Modern science paints a dazzling picture of the brain, a vast network of circuits and signals, billions of neurons firing in exquisite patterns, habits encoded in layers, reflexes triggered in milliseconds, desires linked to dopamine, decisions weighed against cost, reward, risk. The brain, it tells us, is not magic. It's matter. It's biology. It's chemistry. It's physics. But here's the mystery. If that's all it is, if every thought is just a result of algorithms running in meat and electricity, then where exactly do you live? Are you in the circuits? Are you the signals? Or are you the quiet ghost inside the machine, watching, choosing, pretending to be the one at the wheel? Some say consciousness is an illusion, that the feeling of free will is just the program reporting to itself, that you are not a pilot, but a readout, a byproduct, that the system does what it does, and afterward says, I chose that. But even if that were true, even if choice is a beautifully convincing illusion, why is there awareness at all? Why is there a watcher? If your body were a computer with a script that executed every action from morning to night, it could still run without consciousness. Just inputs and outputs, just code and behavior. But that's not your experience. Your experience isn't code. It's knowing, it's being, it's feeling. And those things resist reduction. They resist explanation. They demand presence. You are not just a program running. You are the one feeling what it's like to run. Even if every decision you make is shaped by causes, by what you ate, what you remember, what your genes have primed you for, there is still a self-aware of that shaping. And that self is not an equation. It is not a result. It is a witness. Think of it like this. The wind may move the trees, but the tree still bends in its own way. The weather may shift the sky, but each cloud forms with its own shape. You may be shaped by forces, but your shape is still yours. And maybe the real freedom isn't about escaping the forces. It's about becoming aware of them, watching the program run, and choosing how to greet it. The ghost in the circuit doesn't have to take control. It doesn't have to override the machine. It only has to see it. And that seeing changes everything. Because awareness brings a kind of softness that logic alone cannot. It brings kindness, reflection, grace. You might be the product of 10,000 causes, but you are also the one who pauses, who wonders, who breathes. And in that pause, in that quiet moment of noticing, a tiny gap opens. And inside that gap is something no machine has ever held: the ability to step back, to ask, is this the path I want? Not just to react, but to reflect. That is where freedom lives, not in controlling every variable, but in recognizing the dance of them and still saying, I am here, and this matters, and I choose this response. It's small, maybe, quiet, but it's real. Tonight, as the circuits of your brain continue their beautiful ancient rhythm, as neurons fire and thoughts swirl and memories unfold, know this: you are not lost inside the machine. You are the light behind the monitor, the witness of the code, the awareness that sees it all. Let the machine keep running. Let the body rest. Let the thoughts come and go, like flickering data on a screen. You do not have to fix anything. You do not have to break the program. You only have to rest in the presence that watches and remembers and chooses kindness even when no one is watching. Sleep now, quiet witness. You are not the algorithm. You are not the illusion. You are the ghost. You are the stillness. And that is more than enough. Are we being carried, or are we steering? Picture a river, a wide, winding stretch of water moving slowly across the land, sometimes calm, sometimes fast. Its course was shaped long ago by hills and gravity, by floods and stones, by things you'll never see. Now, imagine a small wooden boat floating on that river, and inside it, someone sits with an oar in their hands. That's you. The river is time, history, memory, habit, biology, cause. It flows without asking your permission. It carries you through childhood, through every decision ever made before you were born, through the very shape of your brain. But the oar, that may be your free will. The oar doesn't stop the river. It doesn't change the current, but it gives you a way to steer, to respond. And sometimes that steering makes all the difference. This is one way of holding both truths: that we are influenced by everything, and yet we still hold a kind of freedom. Not freedom from the flow, but freedom in the flow. Because we are not floating without any say. We are not entirely adrift. We still reach for the oar. We still guide the boat. We still feel the motion of choosing. In your life, you've likely felt this: a moment where you paused before reacting, a choice to speak kindly when anger was easier, a decision to stay instead of run, or to walk away instead of fight. The moment didn't erase your past, didn't cancel your instincts, but something deeper arrived: awareness, a kind of steering. And that kind of steering is not automatic. It requires noticing. It requires reflection. It requires something that isn't mechanical. Because even the smallest act of reflection, asking, why do I feel this way? Or, what happens if I wait before acting? Pulls you out of the current for just a second. It gives you space. And in that space, there is power. Quiet, gentle power. Not the kind that conquers, but the kind that redirects. There's a story some people like to tell about how if you could rewind the universe to the very beginning and hit play again, everything would unfold exactly the same. Every atom, every breath, every choice. As if we're all just dominoes in a grand line of inevitability. But here's a question. If that's true, then why do we feel so deeply that we matter? Why do we suffer over choices? Why do we regret? Why do we hope? Why do we imagine futures that haven't happened yet and care about them? Perhaps it's not because we're deluded. Perhaps it's because we do matter, because how we meet the flow shapes how the flow feels. And how the flow feels is the whole point. Maybe your choice doesn't change the whole river, but it can change the direction of your boat. It can change the way you move through the water. It can change how you meet the other boats. And sometimes, that gentle turn touches something far beyond you. This is the freedom that lives within awareness. The freedom to respond, to reflect, to direct attention, to soften, to stay, to speak with care, to act with kindness even when you're tired, to ask a question instead of making a judgment, to pause. The freedom to pause may be the most sacred freedom of all, because in the pause, the current slows, and in the slowing, something true becomes visible. So tonight, as your mind continues its slow drift and the body lets go of the oars for a while, let yourself feel the river. Let it carry you. You don't need to resist it. You don't need to fight your history or rewrite your mind. You only need to know you have steered today, even in tiny ways, even in the quietest of thoughts. And tomorrow, you will steer again. You are not powerless. You are not a machine. You are the boat. You are the witness. You are the hand on the oar. And even in this moment, this stillness, you are choosing to rest. Sleep now, gentle traveler. The river is wide, but your presence is wider, and the way you move through it matters. If everything is in motion, what happens when you stop? Every day, you are moving. Your body, your thoughts, your choices, your reactions. The world asks 1,000 things of you, and you respond without even noticing half the time. You reach, you speak, you turn, you decide. It feels automatic, and sometimes it is. But once in a while, without planning, without force, you stop. Just for a moment, a pause, a breath. And in that pause, something happens that doesn't feel like motion at all. It feels like stillness, like space. And in that space, there's a question. Do I want to keep going this way? The power of that question is quiet, almost invisible, because it doesn't need an answer. Just the asking is enough. The moment you stop and feel your own presence, separate from the noise, the pace, the pull, that's where free will begins to hum. Not loudly, not with certainty, but like a gentle light under the surface of everything. Maybe the world doesn't pause with you. Maybe the causes still unfold. Maybe the wind keeps blowing and the water keeps flowing. But you have slowed. You've stepped back from the wheel just long enough to realize you're not just riding in the car. You're holding it. You're touching the direction. You're here. It's a strange paradox. We spend so much of our lives rushing forward, trying to make choices. trying to solve problems, trying to feel more in control. But real control, if it exists at all, doesn't come from grasping. It comes from pausing, from resting, from letting the surface settle so the deeper current can be seen. Try it now. Just breathe. Feel your body held by the bed. Feel the warmth around you. Feel the next thought begin to form and let it float by like a cloud. You don't need to grab it. You don't need to follow. Just pause. That pause is a choice. That letting go is a choice. That noticing is a choice. And maybe that's all the freedom you ever needed. Not to command the entire world, not to break free of every chain, but to see the chain and say, I see you. And then move, if only slightly, in another direction. Or maybe just stay. And in staying, shift something quiet, something invisible, something that changes everything. Because not all choices are loud, not all choices are movements. Some choices are stillness, some are breaths, some are soft hands on the steering wheel, not turning yet, but simply remembering that they can. Tonight, you don't need to solve anything. You don't need to chart the river or prove the sky is yours. You only need to know that in the moment before thought, before motion, before reaction, there is space. And in that space, you are already free. You are not bound by the speed of life. You are not defined by the last thought you had. You are not limited by the world rushing around you. You are here, in the pause, in the breath, in the stillness that chooses without needing to explain. So let go now. Let the day drift. Let the body rest. Let the sky above your mind grow wide and empty and soft. You are not stuck. You are not trapped. You are not broken. You are the one who pauses. And in the pause, you remember. You've been choosing all along. And now you choose to rest. You choose to sleep. You choose to be. Right here, right now. And that is more than enough. What if free will isn't what we do, but how we are with it? We often imagine free will as a fork in the road, a place where we stop, weigh our options, and take one path or the other. But most of life isn't like that. Most of life is smaller, softer, less like a crossroads, and more like a breeze shifting slightly. Barely enough to notice, but just enough to change the way the leaves fall. You don't always feel the moment when the choice begins. It's not always a decision, like turning a key. Sometimes it's a tilt, a pause, a feeling. Sometimes it's something that happens beneath the surface, and by the time it reaches your attention, it already feels like a part of you. That's why philosophers have puzzled over this for thousands of years. If we are shaped by everything, our bodies, our memories, our ancestors, our pain, then what exactly is free? And if the body begins to act before the mind declares a choice, then who exactly is choosing? But maybe we're looking too high. Maybe free will doesn't live up there in the grand decisions and bold declarations. Maybe it lives lower, quieter. Maybe it's not even in the what, but in the how. How do you meet what rises in you? When anger stirs, Do you lash out? Or do you feel the heat and hold it gently until it cools? When fear whispers, do you run? Or do you breathe and stay just one moment longer than you thought you could? That space, the one between the reaction and the response, that is the place free will begins to breathe. You may not choose your first thought, but you can choose your second. You may not choose your impulse, but you can choose your attention. You may not choose what appears, but you can choose how you are with it. And that might be everything. Because what if freedom is not about writing the script? What if it's about how kindly, how patiently, how openly we read it? What if it's not about being in charge, but about being in relationship with the moment, with the self, with the world? You don't have to override every instinct to be free. You don't have to break the chain of cause to feel whole. You only have to be here and notice and meet yourself where you are. Tonight, let that be your soft revolution. Not a fight against the current, but a floating in it, with awareness, with warmth, with the quiet memory that even within this great unfolding, you are here. Not as a machine, not as a number, but as a presence. Let the breath rise. Let the body sink. Let the thoughts keep doing what thoughts do. And while they do, you are watching. You are listening. You are choosing. Not always the action, but always the way you hold it. That's a choice too, and it matters. So sleep now, gentle one. You are not late to your life. You are not lost in the tide. You are right where you're meant to be, floating, noticing, choosing, resting. And that choice, the one you made to stop, to soften, to sleep, that may be the most beautiful one of all. If free will is a story, why do we still believe it? Every day, you live a story that feels deeply personal. You wake up and feel like yourself. You make coffee or tea, choose what to wear, speak words you believe you picked. You sit with people, make plans, move your hands, change your mind. You say, I decided, and it feels true. You say, I chose, and something in you nods in agreement. There is a self in there, doing things. A doer, a decider, a driver behind the wheel. But some philosophers say this is all a beautiful illusion. That the feeling of choosing is just the brain reporting after the fact. That everything is pre-written. And what we call free will is just a well-timed echo. So then why, if free will is just a trick, does it feel so real? Because something in us insists on agency, on authorship. Even if we can't prove it, we act as if it's there. Even the scientists who say free will is an illusion still make decisions, still weigh evidence, still take responsibility. If free will is fake, it's a very convincing kind of fake, one that shapes laws, ethics, art, healing, love, one that fills our lives with meaning. And maybe that's the secret. Maybe the story of free will is the freedom. Maybe what matters isn't whether we can prove it exists in a lab, but whether we live as if we are awake, present, responsible, capable of change. Because even if you didn't choose your first thought, you are still the one hearing it. Even if the impulse was planted long ago, you are still the one meeting it now. Even if the story of self is made up, you're the one telling it, and the way you tell it matters. If the story you tell yourself says, I am helpless, you'll live accordingly. But if your story says, I can meet this moment with kindness, then everything shifts, even if just a little. And what if that little shift is free will? Not in the grand sense, not in the cosmic sense, but in the human sense, the lived sense, the felt sense. You may not control the storm, but you can decide how you sit with it. You may not stop the rain, but you can choose how you listen to it. And maybe that's all we ever needed. Because meaning is not always about answers. Sometimes it's about how we carry the question. And the question of free will, whether we truly choose, is one of the deepest we carry. But the fact that we carry it at all says something. It says we want to choose. It says we care how we act. It says we hope to grow. And that hope is not meaningless. It's a kind of choice too. So tonight, whether or not you believe in free will, whether or not you think you're steering the ship, or simply watching it sail, rest in the possibility that you are both the captain and the ocean, the story and the storyteller, the impulse and the pause. Sleep now. You don't have to decide it all. You don't have to solve the paradox. Just notice you're here. You're breathing. You're choosing to listen. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. If we are made of many voices, who does the choosing? Sometimes it feels like there is just one you, a single voice in your head, a consistent self making decisions, responding to the world. But spend enough quiet time with your own thoughts, and you'll notice something stranger. You are not one voice. You are many. The confident one, the doubtful one, the cautious one, the curious one. Sometimes they speak softly. Sometimes they argue. And still, something in you listens, watches, waits, and eventually chooses. But who is that chooser? Not the loudest voice, not always the wisest. Something deeper, something quieter, a presence beneath the voices. Not another personality, but a space, a stillness that hears them all, that considers, that pauses, that makes the call. Not always perfectly, not always clearly, but genuinely. And this is where the question of free will gets soft again. If your mind is made up of parts, of shifting states and inner voices, then choice becomes less like pulling a lever and more like tending a garden. You notice what's growing. You decide what to water. You don't control the rain, but you do place your hands gently on the soil. Even neuroscience begins to agree. The brain is not a unified field. It is a collection of systems, emotional, rational, reactive, intuitive, all chiming in, all suggesting. But consciousness is what binds them, what notices, what feels, what sometimes chooses to interrupt the flow, to turn the wheel, however slightly. In that moment, the one where you hesitate, reflect, adjust, that might be where the self begins to act freely. So, what if you aren't one thing making a choice? What if you are the field in which all these parts speak, and sometimes, by some quiet mystery, a decision arises from their chorus? That doesn't make choice fake. It makes it deeper, more complex, more beautiful. You are not the first thought. You are the one listening to the first thought. You are not the reaction. You are the awareness that holds the reaction gently, without judgment. You are not the sum of your influences. You are the one sitting in the middle of them, breathing. And in that stillness, you can choose. Even if it's just how gently you speak to yourself tonight, even if it's just to stay still when part of you wants to run, even if it's just to say, yes, I see this, I see me. That is free will too, not the dramatic, absolute kind, but the soft kind, the human kind, the kind that loves and hesitates and tries again. So now, as sleep draws close and your breath finds its rhythm, let the voices quiet. Let the deeper you, the one beneath the choosing, rest. You don't need to figure it out. You don't need to choose the perfect thought or action or belief. You've already made the most important choice: to listen, to be with yourself, to let this moment be enough. And it is enough. You are enough. You are not a machine. You are not an echo. You are not just a reaction. You are a presence, a witness, a quiet chooser in a noisy mind. And tonight you choose to rest softly, completely, without needing to know. What do we do with the choices we never got to make? Some choices never belonged to us. The family we were born into, the body we inhabit, the time in history that shaped the world around us. We didn't choose the first words we heard, the first fears we learned, or the thousand quiet forces that built our habits, long before we even had the language to ask if we wanted them. And still, here we are, living as if every day is full of decisions, as if we are shaping something, as if we are steering, even when the road beneath us was poured before we were born. This is the quiet ache inside the question of free will. If we didn't choose where we started, can we really claim to choose where we go? And if so much of life moves without our input, how do we live gently inside a life that often feels like it was already decided? There is no easy answer, but maybe there doesn't need to be, because perhaps the beauty of being human isn't in having absolute freedom, but in the way we carry what we've been given, the way we respond to what was never ours to choose, the way we say yes to the life that arrived in our hands, not by our request, but by the mysterious unfolding of everything that came before us. And within that acceptance, within that humble, this is what is, a new kind of freedom begins to breathe. The freedom to say, I didn't ask for this, but I will still be kind here. I didn't plan this, but I can still be present with it. I didn't choose this pain, but I will choose how I hold it. There is great power in that. You didn't choose the storm, but you are choosing how to sit in it. You didn't choose the silence, but you are choosing to listen to it. You didn't choose the moment you were handed, but in this moment, you are here. That's not nothing. That's not passive. That's not giving up. That's a quiet revolution. That's where resilience lives. That's where love begins again. Sometimes we only notice our freedom when we've lost the illusion of control, when the plan falls apart, when the dream drifts away, when the world reminds us that we were never the author of the story, but still, somehow, we are the ones turning the pages, and that turn is a choice. So tonight, let your heart soften toward the parts of you that never got to choose. The younger you, the hurt you, the confused or scared or restless version of you who simply did what they could with what they had. They weren't weak. They weren't wrong. They were moving through a life shaped by winds they couldn't see. And now you here in this breath, you are choosing how to hold that story with care, with patience, with the gentle knowledge that you are doing your best. Let the parts you didn't choose fall softly now. Let them settle like leaves. Let them rest. You are not responsible for how it all began, but you are here, and how you end this day is still yours to decide. So, sleep. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've made peace with the question. And in that peace, you found something rare, not control, not certainty, but presence. And presence, too, is a kind of choice. The most powerful one there is freedom found in who we are or who we might become. There is a quiet truth that lives beneath every version of free will we try to define, a simple, enduring whisper that says, you are not finished yet, no matter how much of your life was shaped before you arrived, no matter how many decisions were made for you, before you were old enough to know what choice even meant, no matter how many parts of you feel like echoes of someone else's voice, you are still becoming, still unfolding, still changing. And in that slow, invisible movement, there is freedom. Because becoming is not a single moment. It's not a grand decision or a dramatic change. It's 1,000 soft, ordinary choices. To stay curious, to soften a reaction, to see yourself with just a little more warmth than yesterday. And maybe that's what makes the question of free will so deeply human. Not whether we control every moment, but whether we choose to grow inside of them. Think of who you were 5 years ago, 10, the thoughts you trusted, the things you feared, the version of yourself you believed would last forever. And yet, you've shifted, not in one sudden turn, but in tiny ways. Your mind has opened. Your heart has weathered things you once thought impossible. And maybe, without even realizing, you have chosen your way here, inch by inch, breath by breath, not in perfect freedom, but in the kind of freedom that lives at the edge of self-awareness, the kind that hums beneath the noise, like a soft current beneath the waves. Because change doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it comes in the space between one breath and the next, when something in you says, I want to be different, and something else, even quieter, answers, then begin now. We don't always get to choose what wakes us up. Sometimes it's grief. Sometimes it's loss. Sometimes it's love, so deep, it cracks us open. But we always choose what we do with that awakening. Do we hide? Or do we listen? Do we harden? Or do we open just a little more? Free will may not be the power to start from nothing, but maybe it's the courage to respond to what we've been given. Not with resistance, but with tenderness. And that tenderness is transformative. Because when you meet your life, not with blame, not with shame, not with the demand to be perfect, but with gentle, steady becoming, then even the most determined path begins to bend. Even the oldest patterns begin to soften. Even the story that felt finished begins to rewrite itself. You may never step fully outside of cause and effect. You may never know whether your thoughts are yours or simply the echo of 1,000 ancient winds. But you are here now, and how you hold yourself in this moment shapes everything that comes next. So pause. Feel that. The breath you are taking, the space you are resting in, the silence holding your body like water in a still lake. This is a moment of becoming. A chapter quietly turning. A choice that doesn't need to be loud to be real. You don't need to change everything. You only need to say yes to this moment, and then the next one, and then the next. Sleep now, gentle soul. You are not fixed. You are not finished. You are the whisper of becoming. You are the softness beneath the storm. You are the choice unfolding. Even now, even here, even in sleep. If we are free, what do we do with that power? There is a quiet heaviness that often arrives when we begin to believe in free will. Not the kind that feels like punishment, but the kind that feels like holding something delicate. Because if we are free, if even a part of us truly can choose, then that means we are responsible. Not for everything, not for the world, but for the space we take up, for the words we speak, for the way we move through this fragile human life. And responsibility, for all its beauty, is heavy. Not loud, but heavy. Like holding a bird in both hands and knowing it trusts you not to close your fists. Some try to escape this weight by giving it away to fate, to biology, to chance. And there is peace in that too, sometimes. It's easier to say, it wasn't my choice. It's easier to believe I had no control. But deep down, we often feel the truth that we did have a choice. Even a small one. Even if it was just how we responded. And that truth stays with us. It whispers. It reminds. It invites us to live not just with motion, but with meaning. Because responsibility is not about blame. It's not about shame. It's about presence. It's about being awake to the ripple effect of your being. The way your kindness might soften someone else's fear. The way your silence might echo louder than 1,000 words. The way your smallest action becomes a thread in someone else's memory. To carry responsibility well is not to be perfect. It is to be gentle. It is to see yourself clearly and to forgive what you see and to still keep trying. That trying, that intention, that willingness to show up even in uncertainty is the heart of free will. You may not control the wind, but you are still responsible for how you sail. You may not choose the storm, but you are still responsible for how you weather it. You may not know what comes next, but you are still responsible for how you arrive in the now. And that is not a burden, that is a gift, because it means you matter. It means you are not just a passenger. It means you are not just watching this life unfold. You are shaping it with every kindness, with every pause, with every soft moment of listening, with every time you say, I don't know, but I'll stay anyway. You will not always choose well. You are not supposed to. Free will is not the power to always get it right. It is the invitation to return again and again to awareness, to reflection, to care. And that return is where your strength lives. So tonight, as you drift toward sleep, let go of the need to control everything. Let go of the weight that says, I must be perfect. Let go of the idea that you are responsible for every ripple, every outcome, every thread. You are only responsible for being here, for meeting the moment as you can, for holding your life in both hands and whispering, I will try. Let your breath carry you gently now, not toward answers, but toward rest, not toward perfection, but toward presence. You are not here to get it all right. You are here to show up. And tonight, you have. That is enough. That is everything. Sleep well, gentle soul. The world is still turning, and you are still choosing, even in dreams, even in silence, even in sleep. Can we let go and still be free? There comes a moment in every quiet evening, maybe just before sleep, maybe in the hush of a slow breath, when something inside of you stops trying. The planning quiets, the thoughts loosen, the need to figure it all out, to get it all right, to hold the whole world together with your mind, softens. It's not surrender, exactly, not giving up. It's gentler than that. It's a recognition. I don't have to try so hard right now. And strangely, when the effort falls away, something deeper begins to emerge. A kind of openness, a kind of peace, a kind of freedom that doesn't ask you to lift a single finger. We often think of free will as work, as the constant act of choosing, the struggle to be good, to be strong, to be in control. But maybe there is another kind of freedom, the kind that arrives only when we stop reaching for control, when we stop pushing, when we stop narrating every thought, and simply let life move through us the way it wants to. There is a soft magic in those moments when you let go, when you stop wrestling with the decision and simply feel what's true, not because you calculated it, not because you analyzed every option, but because some deeper part of you already knows. You don't have to earn this knowing. You don't have to fight for it. You just have to listen. The effort to control everything can sometimes cloud the very freedom we're trying to find. But beneath that effort is a quieter place, a still center, the part of you that doesn't need to grip so tightly, the part of you that breathes on its own, that returns to stillness even after the loudest storms. That part of you isn't trying to be free. It is free. It always was. And when you rest there, truly rest, something beautiful happens. You begin to see that not every choice needs to be decided with tension. Some choices can unfold. Some actions arise on their own from a place of gentle awareness. And that doesn't mean you are being passive. It doesn't mean you've lost your agency. It means you've remembered that sometimes the most powerful choice is the one you didn't force. The tree doesn't decide when to bloom. The tide doesn't struggle to return to shore. They follow the rhythm of something older than thought. And you can too. So tonight, let go of the effort. Let go of the voice that says, you have to get this right. Let go of the need to decide everything now. Let your body sink deeper into the bed. Let your thoughts drift without needing to be sorted. Let the muscles soften. Let the breath carry you, without direction, without resistance, without fear. You are still free, even when you do nothing. You are still choosing, even in stillness. You are still awake, even as you begin to fall asleep. Because awareness doesn't always need action. Sometimes it just needs space. And tonight, that space is yours. So sleep now. Not because you've finished choosing, but because you've chosen to rest. And that is enough. That is more than enough. Are we still free when we are shaped by love? Every person you've ever met has left a mark on you. Their words, their laughter, their silence, their approval or absence of it. You may not remember every conversation, every look, every shared moment, but they are still in you. Echoes moving beneath your choices, shaping your fears and longings. And in that way, you are not only your own making, you are made of others too. You are stitched together by memory and presence, by connection and response. So where then does your freedom live? If you are shaped by every person who's ever touched your life, are your choices truly yours? It's a fair question, a deep one, because to be human is to be relational, to live not in isolation, but in a web of meaning that stretches between hearts. You may choose to speak or stay silent, to turn toward or away, but those choices don't rise in a vacuum. They rise in the context of every hand that's ever held yours, every voice that's ever called your name. And still, within all of that, something remains yours, because the influence of others doesn't cancel your freedom, it reveals it. Think of it like a mirror. When you look at someone you love, you see them, but you also see something of yourself reflected back. The tenderness you feel, the trust, the hesitation, the hope. These feelings come alive in relationship. And yet, how you respond to them, how you carry them, how you shape your next word or action still belongs to you. And maybe that is where freedom lives, not in being untouched, but in choosing how you are touched. Not in avoiding influence, but in deciding what you do with it. When someone speaks with love, you can receive it or close. When someone wounds you, you can harden or begin to heal. When someone needs you, you can turn toward them or away. These are not always easy choices, but they are real ones. And the way you show up in those moments, messy, unsure, imperfect, that is the shape of your freedom. And if it's true that we're shaped by others, then it's also true that we shape others, that our presence becomes part of someone else's echo, that our kindness, our patience, our listening, those things ripple outward, whether we ever see where they land or not. That responsibility is sacred and quiet and deeply human. So maybe freedom isn't about separating from the world. Maybe it's about choosing how to love within it, choosing how to be with others, choosing, moment by moment, how to bring your full, tender, unfinished self into the space between two hearts. Tonight, think of someone you've loved. Not perfectly, just honestly. Maybe they're near, maybe they're gone, maybe they only live in memory. Think of the way they shaped you, not in grand dramatic ways, but in quiet ones. The way they changed your voice, the way they helped you see something new, the way they reminded you who you could be. That's the kind of shaping that doesn't trap us. It opens us. It reminds us that we are still becoming, and that becoming is never done alone. Let your heart soften with that. Let your breath deepen. Let the tension in your chest loosen just a little. You are not here to be untouched. You are here to respond, to love, to be changed, to still, somehow, choose again and again to show up. Even now, even as you rest, even as you drift. Sleep now, gentle soul. Let the echoes fade. Let the mirrors grow still. You are not alone in the shaping, and you are not powerless within it. You are free, and that freedom is love. Do we choose our lives, or are we simply living them? There's a strange feeling that comes sometimes when we're walking alone, late at night perhaps, or down a quiet road where no one knows our name, a kind of floating, as if our feet are still moving, but the part of us that's supposed to be in charge has drifted slightly out of focus. The world becomes soft, sounds become muffled. We're still here, but it's almost as if the body is walking itself. And for a moment, we wonder, am I the one choosing any of this? Or is life simply happening through me, without asking for permission? This sensation, the sense that life moves on its own, that we are passengers in something we once thought we controlled, can be unsettling. But it can also be oddly comforting. Because in that stillness, a deeper question emerges. What if freedom isn't about commanding the dream, but becoming aware that we are dreaming at all? From the time we're small, we are taught to believe that we are the author of our own stories, that every choice we make defines us, that our will is like a torch we carry through the darkness, lighting the way one moment at a time. And for many of us, that belief helps. It gives meaning. It gives direction. It gives the feeling that this life, no matter how confusing or chaotic, belongs to us. But then life happens. Accidents, illness, grief, love that surprises us, moments that feel too perfect or too painful to have been planned. And we begin to sense that something else is at play, something deeper, something older, a current moving beneath the surface that we are not steering, but riding. It's in those moments, the ones that leave us breathless or wordless or cracked open, where the illusion of control begins to dissolve, And it's here, too, that we begin to glimpse something softer than control, something wiser than will, a kind of surrender that isn't weakness, but awareness. The awareness that maybe we are not the dreamer alone. Maybe we are also the dream. Science, too, has stepped into this mystery. Studies of the brain show that many decisions are set into motion before we are even conscious of them, that our minds begin to prepare before we're aware of any choice at all. And still, we feel that we are choosing, that we are present, that something in us watches, listens, and leans one way or another. Is that awareness itself the real source of our freedom? Because even if the river flows without our command, the awareness of the water, the shape of the banks, the way the light hits the surface as we drift, that changes everything. It changes how we feel the journey. It changes who we are inside it. You may not have chosen the first thought that rose in your mind today. You may not have chosen the weather, or the ache in your shoulder, or the mood that arrived without invitation. But in each of those moments, there was still something awake, something asking, how shall I meet this? What posture will I take? What story will I tell myself now? That is not control in the way we've been taught to think of it. It's not a firm grip on the steering wheel. It's not the ability to halt the dream, but it is a choice, a quiet one that moves not through willpower, but through presence. And presence is something only you can offer. Presence says, this moment matters. Presence says, I am not separate from this unfolding. Presence says, even if I did not start this path, I am here for the next step. There is a deep, invisible strength in that, a strength that doesn't need to conquer anything. It simply stays. It simply shows up. And maybe that's what free will has always been. Not a power over the world, but a relationship with it. A way of saying, yes, I see that I am inside something I cannot fully explain, but I am still here, still witnessing, still meeting it as only I can. So tonight, as your thoughts grow slower and your breath moves deeper, let yourself rest in this softer understanding. You do not have to prove your freedom. You do not have to solve the puzzle. You do not have to force anything into place. Let the world continue its spinning. Let the body continue its gentle rhythms. Let the dream continue to dream itself. And inside all of it, behind your eyes, beneath your thoughts, you are still here, aware, present, choosing not the path, perhaps, but how you walk it. That is enough. That is more than enough. So sleep now, not with effort, but with ease. Not because the questions are finished, but because you are allowed to rest while they remain. And tomorrow, when the dream begins again, you may notice something new in the way it moves, something quiet, something steady, something free. Is freedom hiding in the smallest moments? There's a quote often shared in quiet places, where people go to reflect, to soften, to untangle the threads of thought. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Some say Viktor Frankl wrote those words. Others say they drifted from somewhere else. But no matter their origin, they echo a truth that doesn't need a name to be felt. Because you know that space. You've stood in it before. Maybe not for long. Maybe just a breath's width. But in that breath, you were free. It happens like this. Something difficult enters your day. A sharp word, a wave of fear, an old memory, a sound you weren't expecting. Your body reacts. Your heart races. Your mind prepares a reply, a defense, a retreat. But something, quiet and watchful, pauses. Not forever. Just long enough to ask, is this how I want to respond? And in that pause, everything opens. That pause isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't erase the situation. But it invites you. It holds a door open. A door that leads away from reactivity and toward awareness. A door that says, come through here. Choose how you meet this moment. Not perfectly, not easily, but honestly, softly. We often think of free will as a grand thing, making major life choices, charting bold new paths. But maybe it's this instead, the small moment before the answer, the quiet thought before the habit takes over, the noticing of your own body before the reflex carries you away. It's the way you pause before raising your voice, the way you breathe before hitting send, the way you blink before saying something you can't take back. Those moments, those tiny, flickering moments, are where freedom lives, because the rest of life keeps moving, fast, noisy, demanding. The world doesn't stop for your reflection, but you can stop, just long enough to change the shape of what comes next. You can't always choose what happens, but you can choose how to be with it. And that is a quiet miracle. It's not about controlling everything. It's about relating to everything. And that space between stimulus and response is the meeting point, where biology meets consciousness, where past meets presence, where you get to say, I'm here, I see this, and I will meet it with care. But it's not easy. The space is small. Sometimes it feels like it vanishes altogether. The reaction comes before the thought. The habit speaks before you're ready. And then what? Is the freedom gone? No. It simply moves. It shifts from the first pause to the next one, to the moment after, to the apology, to the quiet returning, to the second chance, because awareness is not a single moment. It's a thread. And every time you notice, even after the fact, you are pulling on that thread again. You are widening the space. And the more you widen it, the more you become someone who lives in that space. Not as a perfect being, but as a presence, as a gentle self who doesn't always get it right, but who always returns. That returning is everything. So tonight, as the world outside your window slows and the room around you grows quiet, feel into that space, that soft place inside you where nothing has to be done, where nothing is rushing, where the next response hasn't yet arrived. Breathe there. Rest there. Let that space hold you, like a cradle of light inside the noise. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to decide anything right now. You just need to feel that the space is real and that it's always there, waiting. In the morning, it will meet you again. When your eyes open, when the thoughts return, there will be a moment, small but enough, where you'll notice. And that noticing will matter, because in it, your freedom lives. Sleep now, gentle soul. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply human. And your pauses are poetry. Your breath is a choice. And your rest, tonight, is the most loving response of all. What if freedom doesn't mean mastery, but surrender? It's a comforting idea in a world that often feels wild and uncertain, that we might be in control, that our lives unfold according to our choices, that each step we take builds towards something we've decided in advance. It gives us a sense of safety, of structure. It allows us to look back and say, yes, I did that. I made this life. I shaped this day, and yet, if we're honest, control, total control, is mostly a myth. A beautiful one, a useful one, but still a myth. Because the truth is, you didn't choose your first breath. You didn't write your genetic code. You didn't select the people who would raise you, or the country you'd live in, or the brain that would process every thought. You didn't decide what day you'd first feel loss, or joy, or love. Life happened to you, just as it happens to all of us, and often it doesn't ask for permission. But maybe that's not a failure. Maybe that's not the absence of freedom. Maybe the real freedom is found in what we do after control has slipped through our fingers. Maybe the deepest kind of free will isn't about mastery, but about surrender. Not giving up, but softening. Meeting what comes not with clenched fists, but open hands. Saying, I didn't ask for this, but I'm here now. And how I respond is still mine. Surrender doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean floating without shape. It means being with the moment instead of against it. It means knowing that the river is strong and you cannot stop its current, but you can still steer. You can still feel the water. You can still choose to sing as you go. Because if we spend all our energy trying to control the world, we miss the subtler invitation to relate to it. And that relationship, intimate, imperfect, alive, is where the truest kind of freedom lives. You don't need to command the tides. You only need to be present for the changing of them. Think of all the ways your life has changed when you didn't expect it. The people who arrived without warning. The moments of quiet that grew into something sacred. The losses that shaped you, even as they ached. Were those things chosen? No. But your response to them, that soft movement in the heart that says, I will meet this, that was yours. And it still is, even now, even here, even lying in the dark, with your breath slow and your thoughts fading. You are not in control of sleep. You cannot command it to come. But you can make space for it. You can surrender. You can say, I'm ready, and let it take you. That, too, is free will. Not force, not domination, not certainty, but surrender, but presence, but choosing to soften again and again. So let go now. Not because the questions are over, but because you no longer need to hold them so tightly. Let the idea of control drift out like the tide. Let your hands open. Let the breath deepen. Let the body rest. You are not failing by not being in charge. You are being human. And that is more than enough. Sleep, quiet soul. You've done all you can for now. The current will carry you. The stars will watch over you. And the part of you that still wonders, do I really choose this life? That part is allowed to rest too. Because sometimes choosing to rest is the wisest choice of all. Can we shape our future without knowing the plan? Imagine a house being built not from blueprints, but from touch, from intuition, from walking through the space and saying, "Here, the light feels good. Let's place a window." Or, "This corner feels heavy. Let's open it up." There is no master plan, no strict design, only a slow becoming, a building of something honest, moment by moment, with what is available, with what feels true. That house may never win awards, but it might feel like home. That, in many ways, is what our lives are like. We are not handed a complete blueprint. We are not given the full shape of our future. We are not always sure what we're building, or whether we are building anything at all. And yet, each word we speak, each person we trust, each morning we choose to begin again, is a kind of brick, a kind of frame, a kind of quiet decision that shapes the space we'll live in tomorrow. And this is the soft work of free will. Not to see the end from the beginning, but to trust the building process anyway. To be the architect of a life that unfolds not all at once, but breath by breath. There is something freeing about that, because it means you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know the final purpose. You don't need to see every outcome before you begin. You only need to show up, to lay the next stone, to feel into the space and ask, what is needed here? And sometimes, what's needed is rest. Sometimes, it's silence. Sometimes, it's a pause before the next word. And sometimes, it's simply the willingness to stay present, without a script, without a promise, without certainty. We live in a world that values plans, that tells us to decide who we are, what we want, how to get it, and to chase those things with precision. But real life doesn't often work that way. Real life changes. It shifts. The walls we build one year may need to be taken down the next. The window we place so carefully may no longer face the sun. And when that happens, the gentle architect within us steps forward again, not to blame, but to begin anew. That beginning, that ability to revise, to redesign, to reshape, is freedom. Not the freedom of total control, but the freedom of relationship. Relationship with what is and what might still be. You are not stuck with the first version of your life. You are not bound to every past decision. You are always building. And building is not about perfection. It's about presence. So tonight, let go of the blueprint. Let go of the pressure to finish. Let go of the voice that says, you must know where this is going. Instead, Let yourself become soft in the unknowing. Let your breath be the next gentle step. Let your body be the foundation you return to. Let your heart guide the shape of the next room, even if you can't yet see its walls. You are the architect, yes, but you are also the material, the builder, the space, and your willingness to keep showing up, to keep building with care, even in the dark. That is your freedom. Sleep now, builder of quiet things. The future will wait. The plans can rest. And your presence tonight is enough to carry you toward what comes next. If everything is laid before us, why do we still wander? There's a road in your life you've been walking for a long time now. Not a physical road, but a path made of choices, chance, and change. Some parts of it are paved and familiar. Others are foggy, covered in leaves. The kind of path you can only see once you've already taken a few uncertain steps. Sometimes it feels like you're following a trail someone else made for you. Your upbringing, your body, your history, your fears. And sometimes it feels like you're forging something entirely new, something never seen before. So which is it? Are you walking a path that was already written, or are you writing it as you go? This is one of the oldest paradoxes of being human, the sense that we are both guided and guiding, that we are pulled by forces bigger than us, biology, culture, time, and yet still responsible for how we meet each moment, that we are not completely free, and yet we are not completely bound either. Perhaps it's not one or the other. Perhaps the truth is softer, quieter. Perhaps the path is already there, but the way we walk it, the posture we take, the stories we carry, the pace we choose, those are still ours. You didn't choose the terrain, but you are choosing your steps, and every step tells a story. You might walk with resentment or curiosity. You might run blindly or pause and watch the wind. You might carry burdens that were never yours to hold, or you might begin to set them down one by one. These, too, are choices. They may not be loud. They may not change the path entirely, but they change you. And in changing you, they change how the path feels. And that is real freedom. We long for certainty, for the comfort of knowing we are in control. But there's something strangely comforting about the lack of control, too, because it means we're not alone in shaping this life. That something else, something beyond understanding, is helping to guide us, even when we don't see the map. And in the moments we do pause, we often find signs we didn't know we were looking for. A kindness that arrives unexpectedly, a decision that feels right without needing proof, a silence that suddenly feels like direction. Those are not accidents. Those are the quiet language of the path itself, speaking, not in answers, but in invitations. You don't have to know where this road leads. You don't have to walk it perfectly. You only have to walk it with awareness, with softness, with the willingness to stay present, even when the way forward disappears into mist. And when you reach a bend, and you will, you don't need to see beyond it to keep going. You only need to take the next step with care. You only need to say, yes, I will meet this moment again, even without knowing what it will become. That is your freedom. That is your power. Not to choose the whole path at once, but to meet it with your full, open self, again and again. So tonight, as your body rests and your mind wanders back through the steps of the day, let go of the need to plan the rest of the journey. Let go of the thought that you're behind, or lost, or broken. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Here, in this breath, in this pause, in this turning. You are walking a path only you can walk, and you are not walking it alone. Every breath is a step. Every thought is a fork in the road. Every soft returning to the present is a decision to stay. Sleep now, gentle traveler. You don't need to see the whole road. You don't need to map the future. Just walk this moment, this breath, this quiet, and let the path rise to meet your feet. Somewhere deep inside you, beneath the habits, beneath the fears, beneath the voice that tells you who you should be, is a thread. It's not visible. You can't touch it, or weigh it, or measure it. But you've felt it, in quiet moments, in sudden clarity, in the gentle ache of being alive. That thread is what some call the soul, or the self, or the observer. It is not shaped by the rules of the world. It is not changed by every storm. It simply is. And maybe, just maybe, it's the truest part of your freedom. Because this thread doesn't shout. It doesn't try to control your life or decide the outcome of every decision. It's quieter than that. It sits at the center of you, watching, waiting, offering presence without pressure. And in that presence, something ancient stirs. The sense that no matter what has happened, no matter who others say you are, there is still something in you that belongs only to you. Something no one gave you. Something no one can take away. It might not make your choices easier. It might not solve the riddle of free will, but it reminds you that you are here and that your here-ness matters. You can go your whole life without naming it, and still, it will walk beside you. In the breath you take when the world falls silent, in the kindness you offer when no one is watching, in the moment you look at a stranger and feel somehow like you've always known them. That thread connects you not only to yourself, but to everything. It reminds you that even if you're shaped by the stars, by biology, by memory, you still carry something that responds freely, gently, that pauses, that wonders, that chooses not just what to do, but how to be. Some might say, that's not real freedom. That freedom requires total control, total separation from the forces that move us. But maybe true freedom is quieter than that. Maybe it's not about being untouched by life. Maybe it's about being touched deeply and still choosing to remain soft. Maybe it's about feeling everything and still returning to that thread. The world is loud. It will try to name you. It will try to push and pull and shape. But your thread doesn't bend to noise. It stays steady beneath the surface, reminding you you are more than your thoughts. You are more than your reactions. You are more than what happened to you. You are the one who notices, who breathes, who returns. And in that returning, you reclaim yourself again and again. So tonight, as your body sinks and your thoughts drift, reach for that thread, not with hands, but with awareness. You don't need to grip it. Just remember, it's there. Let it hold you as gently as breath. Let it remind you that you are not just this day, not just this moment. You are part of something deeper, older, wiser, freer. You are the thread. You are the stillness. You are the watcher behind the motion. And when the morning comes, no matter what path you walk, that thread will walk with you, invisible, unshakable, yours. Sleep now, not because the question has been answered, but because you've made peace with carrying it. And you've remembered that the one who carries it is free. Is there something in us that has always been free? Somewhere deep inside you, beneath the habits, beneath the fears, beneath the voice that tells you who you should be, is a thread. It's not visible. You can't touch it or weigh it or measure it, but you've felt it in quiet moments, in sudden clarity, in the gentle ache of being alive. That thread is what some call the soul, or the self, or the observer. It is not shaped by the rules of the world. It is not changed by every storm. It simply is. And maybe, just maybe, it's the truest part of your freedom. Because this thread doesn't shout. It doesn't try to control your life or decide the outcome of every decision. It's quieter than that. It sits at the center of you, watching, waiting, offering presence without pressure. And in that presence, something ancient stirs. The sense that no matter what has happened, no matter who others say you are, there is still something in you that belongs only to you. Something no one gave you. Something no one can take away. It might not make your choices easier. It might not solve the riddle of free will, but it reminds you that you are here and that your here-ness matters. You can go your whole life without naming it, and still, it will walk beside you. In the breath you take when the world falls silent, in the kindness you offer when no one is watching, in the moment you look at a stranger and feel, somehow, like you've always known them. That thread connects you, not only to yourself, but to everything. It reminds you that even if you're shaped by the stars, by biology, by memory, you still carry something that responds freely, gently, that pauses, that wonders, that chooses not just what to do, but how to be. Some might say that's not real freedom. That freedom requires total control, total separation from the forces that move us. But maybe true freedom is quieter than that. Maybe it's not about being untouched by life. Maybe it's about being touched deeply and still choosing to remain soft. Maybe it's about feeling everything and still returning to that thread. The world is loud. It will try to name you. It will try to push and pull and shape. But your thread doesn't bend to noise. It stays steady beneath the surface, reminding you you are more than your thoughts. You are more than your reactions. You are more than what happened to you. You are the one who notices, who breathes, who returns. And in that returning, you reclaim yourself again and again. So tonight, as your body sinks and your thoughts drift, reach for that thread, not with hands, but with awareness. You don't need to grip it. Just remember, it's there. Let it hold you as gently as breath. Let it remind you that you are not just this day, not just this moment. You are part of something deeper, older, wiser, freer. You are the thread. You are the stillness. You are the watcher behind the motion. And when the morning comes, no matter what path you walk, that thread will walk with you. Invisible, unshakable, yours. Sleep now, not because the question has been answered, but because you've made peace with carrying it, and you've remembered that the one who carries it is free. Are the smallest acts of will the most powerful of all? We're often told that freedom looks like something big, a bold decision, a dramatic change, a declaration shouted from a mountaintop. But most of the time, free will doesn't look like that. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It doesn't need to be grand to be true. Sometimes, the freest thing we ever do is small. So small that no one notices but us. It's the moment you choose not to respond with anger. The moment you put your phone down and look someone in the eye. The moment you decide to rest instead of pushing through. The moment you whisper to yourself, I'm doing the best I can, and believe it. Tiny things, private things. But these moments, these small, quiet revolutions, are acts of will. Not because they are loud, but because they are yours. Because they rise not from habit, or fear, or pressure, but from something deeper. From presence, from care, from the space you've made inside yourself to breathe, to notice, to act with intention. We're told to measure life in milestones, in goals, in outcomes. But the soul doesn't measure that way. It doesn't keep score of achievements. It watches the smallest decisions, the ones made in the space between thoughts. The kindness you show when no one else is watching. The compassion you extend to yourself when the world is silent. The way you choose to return, again and again, to gentleness, even when it would be easier not to. These moments won't go viral. They won't earn awards, but they are real. They are meaningful, and they change you, not all at once, but gradually, like water wearing down stone, like a seed splitting open in darkness, like sunlight moving across a wall. And in that changing, your life begins to feel like yours again. Not because you control every part of it, but because you are meeting it with awareness, with care, with the quiet insistence that how you show up matters. There is power in that, soft power, enduring power, because the world will keep trying to define you. It will keep offering scripts, roles to play, identities to wear, and some of those roles might fit, but some might not. And in those moments when you feel the dissonance, when something in you whispers, this isn't quite me, you are offered a choice. Will you follow the script? Or will you write a new sentence? Even one line, even one word. That word is your freedom. So let yourself be proud of the quiet decisions, the ones no one applauds, the ones that aren't even visible, the ones that take place entirely within you. They are shaping your path more than you know. Tonight, as you rest, think back gently to one such moment today, a small decision you made to care, to pause, to soften. Doesn't matter if it was perfect. It only matters that it was yours. That was free will, right there, in the breath, in the stillness, in the choice not to rush. Let that be enough. Let that carry you now. Let your body unwind. Let your mind quiet. Let the day fall away like a coat you no longer need to wear. Sleep, quiet revolutionary. Your will doesn't need to shout. It only needs to return to the breath, to the heart, to the moment, again and again and again. If we don't control everything, can we still be kind to ourselves? There is a part of you that watches, not critically, not with judgment, but with quiet awareness. It watches when you stumble, when you get swept up in the current of old habits, when you say something you wish you hadn't, when you forget what you promised yourself. This part of you doesn't scold. It doesn't roll its eyes or shut you out. It just watches, gently, as if to say, you are still here, and you are still allowed to begin again. We don't talk much about this part of ourselves, because so much of life is performance. So much of the world demands that we explain, justify, correct. We're told that freedom is about always doing better, that it lives in self-control, in power, in willpower. But sometimes, the greatest act of will is not the one that pushes forward. It's the one that pauses, softens, and forgives. Not because we deserve to mess up, but because being human means we inevitably will. And the kindest thing we can do is notice without turning away. There's something freeing in realizing you will not always get it right, that your freedom does not depend on perfection, that even when your reactions take the lead, even when your thoughts are loud and your awareness is dim, you are still being watched, gently, by that deeper self, the one who doesn't need you to perform, the one who sees every messy moment and still whispers, "Come back, try again. I'm still here." That's not weakness, that's wisdom, the kind that lives in the space beyond reaction, the kind that sees your missteps not as failures, but as chances to return. Because maybe free will is not about never falling. Maybe it's about what happens after. Do you turn away from yourself? Or do you meet your gaze again in the mirror and say, "Yes, I see you. Let's keep going"? That's a choice, a sacred one, and you get to make it as many times as you need to. This is what makes you more than a product of causes and effects. This is what separates you from machines and patterns and the cold logic of perfect predictability. Not that you always control your thoughts, but that you can respond to them with care, that you can rise even from your own forgetting, that you can remember how to be soft even when you've been hard. So tonight, as you prepare to sleep, don't try to relive the day to perfect it. Don't scroll through regrets or try to rewrite the things you said or did. Just notice with that quiet, kind gaze. Notice the places where you acted with love, and notice the places where you forgot how, and hold them both, not as proof of failure or success, but as signs that you are alive, learning, human. The watcher in you is not keeping score. It's keeping vigil. It's waiting, not for you to be flawless, but for you to remember that you are allowed to be whole, even when you are not complete. That's the quiet miracle of consciousness, that it doesn't disappear when we fall short. It stays, it watches, and when we're ready, it helps us come home again. So let yourself come home. Let your breath slow. Let your muscles soften. Let the story of the day close gently, like a book placed beside the bed. You don't need to fix anything. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to earn rest. You are already enough. You are already whole. And tomorrow, you will still be free to begin again. Sleep, dear soul. The one who watches you loves you deeply. And that, too, is something you are free to believe.